All right. Looks like it is noon now. Wayne, are you ready to get started?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining our webinar, How B2B Can Master Search, Social, and Web in an AI-Dominated World. We're excited to share the latest impacts AI has had on digital marketing and our advice for B2B companies to address these impacts. Before we start, just a couple housekeeping things to note. First, this session is being recorded and it will be available on demand afterwards. If you have any questions, please drop those into the questions tab of the GoToWebinar control panel at any time. We'll try to address the questions throughout this conversation, and if we don't get to one, we'll follow up with you after the webinar. And then if you'd like a copy of the deck, you can download the slides from the handouts tab of the control panel. So first, just a few introductions. Wayne and I are part of the agency team here at Sikich. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with us, we are a full-service marketing and communications agency that sits within Sikich, a larger professional services firm. My name is Mackenzie Ernest. I'm a director on the agency team, helping B2B marketing teams build and execute digital marketing strategies. And Wayne, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. Wayne Kaufman-Schmidt, and also part of the agency team at Sikich. And I am the director of digital marketing. So that's covering over search optimization, paid digital marketing, as well as website design development.
So during this webinar, we will cover how AI is changing search, social, and company websites. We'll share how companies can transform their digital marketing strategies in light of these changes to better engage with customers and prospects. And we'll share how to advance growth efforts in this new AI forward world. And just to be clear, this isn't a discussion focused on what AI tools are on the market and how to use them. Instead, we're exploring how AI is reshaping digital channels, the channels we depend on to reach and engage with customers. So primarily, we'll discuss how AI is changing the digital marketing landscape and how companies should react. And then secondarily, we will give a little bit of insight into how AI tools can help you react at scale. So first, we'll dive into search. We'll share with you how AI is helping search engines understand user intent, personalize results, and optimize content. Then we'll share how businesses can optimize their content to take full advantage of AI-powered search. Then we'll dive into social media, where platforms have been using AI to update algorithms in an effort to provide more relevant content aligned with user behavior and preferences. We'll discuss how companies can pivot their social strategies in line with zero-click algorithm trends and use AI to optimize their social efforts. And then last, we'll discuss how these changes in search and social are impacting the role of company websites. And we'll describe what you can expect regarding website traffic in an AI world and how you can refine your website to better meet your audience's needs. So I'll kick it off to Wayne to start with search.
Sure, absolutely. So search has always been a place where we're trying to provide the best answer that we can based on limited information. With AI, that search is sort of beginning to get better, even be able to predict, what someone might want to find based on that limited information that they're providing. So we're going to take a look at sort of how the face of those search results has changed with the introduction of AI. So we'll take a look at sort of a few variations of some different ways that we search or what we're searching for. So the first of those is a knowledge-based search, right? So I'm just trying to understand a topic better. In this particular case, I'm searching about some camera techniques. But the real key here is to look at, what are the results that are coming back here. So with AI, we're getting to a place where now we can actually get that answer without jumping to a website, right? So we're pulling information from those websites in order to produce these answers through AI, but we're able to just stay within search and continue that. So as we begin to look at that, we can see here that with a knowledge-based search, the first thing that's coming up is this sort of AI-based answer. So it's pulling and referencing pages throughout the internet, but it's bringing back some potential answers to that question. We also have, in this case, the best answer. So it found one page that it feels like is overwhelmingly answering this question well, pulled out an excerpt from that page in order for us to answer that question. And then beneath that, we've got similar questions. So again, maybe, in a predictive sort of way, you ask this question, maybe you wanted to learn something similar to that, and we can help sort of drive you through those variations. Beneath that, we've got discussions and forums, and then we get to sort of the traditional search results. I do think it's sort of important here at the top. So we're really looking at search and sort of Google search in this particular case. But I think it's important to know that these same sort of answers and this same sort of AI generated answer is something that now people are starting to do with ChatGPT, with other AI, Copilot, what have you. I can jump into those tools and ask it a question or ask it to come back with some bullet points, and it's doing the same thing. It's searching the internet and coming back with that answer without ever really needing for me to go to that web page. So let's take a look at the next search result here. So the next one is more of a product-based search. So we can see immediately that we've swapped out what the answers are and even the format of these results. So we're starting off with some paid placements for, in this case, I'm looking for a camera lens. And then we do have that best answer that is in here again. We've got similar questions, discussions and forums, and then down to those search results. So we've introduced some paid advertising here. But, again, the key is that AI is adjusting the order and the type of results that are coming up based on the type of question that I'm asking. Our next one here is a local search, right? So now I'm trying to find those services in my area. Again, we've got paid, we've got best answer, and it's local based. And again, we've got maps associated with that because this location is trying to help with those pieces. And then into the similar questions that you might have wanted to ask, and then into the deeper sort of standard search results. The next is a service-based search. So this is, no location in terms of that piece of it. Again, we start with a paid placement, then our best answer, then the discussions and forums, then similar questions, and then into those search results. So, it's also important here. So let me sort of step back and talk about why we're looking at these. So if we're going to optimize what we're doing with our strategy for search, then we've got to understand how search is sort of delivering these results. And I think it's important to realize that Google is also experimenting all the time with that. So even though when I pulled these up for this presentation, this was the order and sort of the number of entries and what have you, it's very likely that if I pull together this same presentation next month, that these may change. And so when we think about that from an SEO standpoint, we used to look to Google to wait to say, when did you update your algorithm? And then based on that algorithm, now I've got to change my sort of SEO strategy potentially. With the advent of AI, that is a constant evolving piece in terms of what can be being presented here. So this is something that if we're thinking about how do we optimize, we also have to be thinking about that we've got to be coming back and validating that what I'm optimizing for is also the way that Google is still looking at this. So if we then get into sort of that recommendation or how do we begin to do that, sort of the old adage of how do I get on the first page of Google is still true, but we can see we've sort of intersected in between the standard answers of paid search and optimize for organic, this new answer, which is thinking about how do I improve based on those AI rankings. So the two sort of pieces that live underneath here is really thinking about the answers to those commonly searched questions. And then sort of the new one is that participation in discussions and forums. And we'll kind of dig into each of these pieces here. So paid search, right? So while paid search is still very similar to maybe sort of the pre-AI world, I think we do have to take a look at how those search results in terms of paid do change. We could see even within the different examples that I had, different paid results are coming up, and the amount of those and what have you is always very, very flexible. But it is important to still be thinking about, what are your objectives and your goals, and how do those relate to what's available within search. And again, while we're not going to get into discussions, any sort of deep discussions in terms of tools, this is a place where tools can absolutely help and can be leveraged in order to make this better. So, there are tools out there that you can help with your analyzing of results, the asset creation of that. So the ability to improve and optimize using AI tools is definitely a big piece here in terms of paid. So let's talk about optimizing for AI. So that example that I had, and just sort of from a reference point, so the best answer on sort of focal length for cameras, I dove into that page. It is a deep page. So in terms of, what does it take to compete, or what does it take to be that top answer, 17,000 plus words, 85 images, videos, comments. So depending on how crowded that space is, it may be quite a bit to get into that top spot. If you're not in as crowded of a space, that may be a little bit easier to get into. But in terms of how you analyze this and what those opportunities are, these are just things to be thinking about when you try to get into certainly the best answer space. Now, as we get into the AI generated answers, there are certainly often multiple places that are cited for that, and so there's certainly more opportunity there. Again, the key here is, how do I structure my content, right? So are we structuring that content to be picked up for these questions that are being asked? So thinking about the structure within the page and breaking that up in order to be very clear against what is the content that we're addressing inside each of these pieces, and then building that content up so that it's more likely to get picked up and pulled into these answers. The next, which sort of extends on that, is really thinking about your content as an answer to a question, right? So Google's coming back, it's bringing back sort of typically for, did you mean to ask this question, or is this perhaps a different question that gets at the answer you're trying to find? As soon as you click on one of those, it pulls in more, right? And so it's continuously trying to help you refine and get that answer without leaving, right? With staying inside of here and continuing to sort of expand those answers. And this is also helping its AI to learn, what are the answers that are typically clicked on, off of this starting answer, and improving those. So building our content within our pages to be thinking about coming up within that Q&A means sort of building out that page against, hey, here's a common question, here's an answer to that question. Or in terms of the structure of that content, thinking about that in terms of, discrete answers that are around a particular topic area. And then certainly schema markup as it relates to sort of search today. and sort of structuring that secondarily within the page in terms of what content is on this page is definitely something that Google is still pulling and helping to inform information. So thinking about that piece, also useful. Participation in discussion and forums, and perhaps your organization hasn't thought too much about discussions and forums, but now that they're in the search results list, all of a sudden you start to say, well, if they're important to Google, maybe they need to be more important to my organization also. And I like to sort of think about this as almost an extension of or similar to what you do with a social strategy, right? So where can I participate? Where is my audience? What are the topics that they're talking about? And there are a couple of different ways that we can sort of leverage the discussions and forums, right? So the first is sort of not participate, but be looking in, right? So that's mining those forums for future content or for different topics, right? The next becomes, actually getting involved, right? So if there are places where the discussion around, a product that you have or a place where you have quite a bit of knowledge, then these are opportunities to participate and get your products or get your information or get your links into these discussions and forums in an appropriate way. Again, similar to social, we don't want to be overly sort of advertorial. We want to be authentic and be useful within that, which then gets us to that last piece, which is really then starting to introduce topics and share knowledge within that forum and really sort of have a presence within that forum or those discussion groups. And then the last piece of that is, that optimize for organic, right? And hope someone scrolls beyond these AI results. So I do want to say that this is still an important part of your SEO strategy. And for a lot of reasons, it's because there's overlap between getting listed within your organic and getting listed within those AI topics. If you've got a great page that is getting listed as the top answer to this question, it's also going to come up pretty high on these search results list. So it's important to sort of balance this against the other things that we're doing within the SEO strategy. And then I would also extend, there's always value in sort of building out that content model and going beyond just sort of the traditional article or sort of text-based page to be thinking about how can I also be listed within video content, within podcast content, within images, so that there are additional places that I can be getting listed within that. So thinking through those pieces. And then the last piece, and I think, tip should underpin everything that we're doing, which is that measurement strategy, right? So as we think about these new things that I'm chasing within search, that also means that I've got to make sure that my measurement is updated to be taking those into account. So, how are we measuring where I'm coming up within those AI results, as well as the organic search, and then the effectiveness of that, right? So I'm coming up first. Maybe someone is reading that information, never clicking to get to my page, but it's still useful because I was the knowledge source that provided that information, and hopefully that brings them back in future. And so thinking about that and refining the approach around the change in sort of user behavior, in addition to the change in terms of what sort of pieces we're chasing after with those AI results. And then again, this is a great place where we can leverage AI to help do the work, right? So AI can help us to bring faster insights. AI can help us to identify those gaps or anomalies within our information compared to the rest of the information that's on the internet. So thinking through those pieces within here. And with that, I will hand you back to Mackenzie to talk through social.
Yep. So now we'll shift gears, looking into social media. And here you'll kind of see similar trends of personalization and tailored content. But first, how is AI changing social media? Kind of most importantly, it's allowing platforms to more quickly and constantly even sift through all of the mountains of data to refine their algorithms and ensure the most relevant content is shared with each user. So I think a good example of that is, the power of the algorithm we've seen on TikTok where each user's feed was curated almost exactly to their interests and their lifestyle. And platforms aren't doing this just to enhance the user experience. Their intention is to keep users on the platform for as long as possible for the monetary benefits. So they're also giving priority to zero-click content, which would be content that doesn't click out to other websites, in addition to this content that is hyper-relevant to their various user segments. And while AI is helping social platforms refine their algorithms, it can also help brands optimize their social media strategy. So AI tools can be used for everything from social listening to content development to influencer management to data analysis and optimization. But with all of these AI tools available, the barrier to entry on social media is lower than ever. Any company, big or small, can now quickly and easily post content at a regular cadence. And also with these AI tools, there'll be an explosion of AI generated content, making it more challenging to get in front of your target audience. And this explosion of AI generated content is also going to start to raise the bar on what content merits engagement. When all of these posts are, AI generated, same tone of voice, same style, users are going to get pickier and pickier about what content they find valuable and therefore are willing to engage with. So ultimately, the availability of AI tools is going to make it more difficult than ever for each company to reach and engage with their target audience. So to combat this challenge, we recommend a 3-step process to refine social strategies for AI. The first piece is to audit and determine where you need to be to reach your customers and prospects. Then optimize. So this is where you can take advantage of AI tools, though you shouldn't solely rely on them, to execute your strategy and curate a consistent stream of relevant and engaging content. And then third is exploring how more of the sales process can take place directly on social media. So we'll get into the marketing funnel in a little bit, but ultimately you want to work with sales to conduct more of the top of funnel activities such as education directly on social media platforms to align with that zero-click preference that social channels have to keep users on their sites. So we'll dive into the audit piece a little bit here. First, there are so many platforms for companies to establish a presence on. We see new platforms popping up constantly. So if you're a resource-strapped company, how do you post consistently engaging and exciting content across all of these different platforms? And our recommendation is that you don't. Instead, research and identify 1 or 2 platforms that your target audience is most active on and build your strategy around those top platforms. So for example, for B2B companies, it's very likely that LinkedIn and maybe YouTube are those top 2 channels to reach your target audience. So you'll want to build a strategy that really emphasizes video, maybe includes some text-based posts, incorporates engaging imagery, emphasizes articles, newsletters, maybe even executive thought leadership, and really curate all that type of content into your social media strategy. And then once you've optimized for those platforms, you can use AI tools to refine that content and maintain a presence on other platforms. So you'll take those videos or those long form thought leadership pieces and use AI to break those up into other posts for Facebook or TikTok or what other channels you're on. And then once you've identified where to prioritize your time, it's time to start optimizing your strategy. So on the content side, you'll want to consistently develop and publish content, changing up the post format, exploring with different imagery and messaging, really trying to see what resonates best with your audience and prioritizing that type of content. It's also really important to ensure that the material that you post is high value and stands out in a crowded news feed. So promotional posts that are touting product features or generic posts focusing on your customer service isn't going to capture the attention of your audience. You want something that's really valuable and discusses the challenges and trends your audience is facing, posts that educate them, that help them solve pressing problems. And then you'll also want to extend your social media strategy beyond your content calendar. So how are you driving conversations on the platform? For example, are you arming your sales team with insights and messaging so that they can participate in relevant discussions? Are you monitoring trends and encouraging conversation? And this is another area where AI tools can help you start. So AI can help you understand what topics are important to your audience, can forecast trends, monitor for conversations to take part in. You could also mine engagement on your channels to uncover initial interest and then pass that along to the commercial team to continue the conversation. So for example, if you share a white paper on an industry trend and someone comments with interest or with a question, you could allow someone from your sales team to jump in with a response and start a discussion there. And then the third and kind of key piece for optimization is data analysis. So social media was never a set it and forget it type of channel, and more so today with AI, it is not. Algorithms and user preferences are constantly changing, so you need to keep testing different types of content, different calls to action, different graphics, and refine your strategy based on what's performing best. You also should monitor what your competitors are doing, not necessarily to replicate, but to enhance or find gaps that you can fill. Just make sure you're looking at your data, understanding what's working best, and then doubling down on the types of content, graphics, call to actions that's really performing best. And there are tons of AI tools available to support social media strategy. As I noted before, you can use AI to monitor trends, develop content, analyze results. But most importantly, over-reliance on AI is going to make it impossible to stand out in a cluttered newsfeed. So while AI tools can fill in gaps in your team and help you enhance and scale your social media efforts, it's not a way to outsource your entire social media strategy. You need to make sure everything has a human touch to it because authenticity is going to be critical in an AI-powered world. And then moving on to part 3 of the 3-step process is that conversation piece. So this is where you coordinate with marketing and sales to take full advantage of social channels. Going back to that preference for zero-click content, as I noted before, that's really changing the role social media plays in the marketing funnel. Previously, social media was very top of funnel, so it would help companies get in front of as many eyeballs as they could, and then you'd quickly transition those eyeballs to another site, such as your company website, to educate, drive consideration, and then ultimately conversions. Now, more of that upper marketing funnel needs to take place on social media. Because algorithms are prioritizing content that doesn't link out to other websites, you need to do more of that education piece directly on social media. And this isn't going to be achievable just by simply posting more content. You need to involve the commercial side here. So you need to blend your commercial sales strategy with your social media strategy. And you can do this by arming your sales team with materials and messaging and content and data to help them drive conversations and education directly on social media platforms. And then once users are closer to that conversion stage, that's when they can be passed through to a website. So what does this look like? Previously, this is what a typical customer journey from social media would look like. A user would see companies' social media post. There'd be a call to action directing them to the website. They would click on it. At some point, they might have to share an email or some sort of other data to access that content. And then they would be nurtured maybe through email campaigns, social campaigns, and eventually would move into a sale. Now, more of that journey is going to take place on social. So instead of a call to action leading to a website, the call to action should drive conversation. And the goal would be to help the commercial team continue or initiate conversations with interested users. So eventually, through discussion, that user might share an email with the sales rep, or they would move the discussion off of social media. And then at that point, they would be ready to convert or put into a nurture campaign. And I'll walk through kind of an example of what a customer journey could look like here in this new world. So let's say you post an infographic on a pressing industry trend, you put some ad dollars behind that post, a user sees it and they like it because it addresses a challenge that they're currently facing. Maybe they comment, maybe they share it with a colleague. You pass that data on to a sales rep, your sales rep requests to connect with that user and offer additional information, such as a blog post on the topic. Again, because you had high value content to start, the user accepts the request and requests this blog post because they know that you're sharing quality content that addresses the challenges they're facing. The user then converses with that sales rep, they share the blog post, maybe ask them questions, start a discussion. Ultimately, it's decided that the company can solve this user's challenge, and the sales rep directs that user to the website where they can find information on products, advantages over competitors, pricing, etc. So this would obviously be an ideal state. Each interaction won't be that easy, but the main point is that it's the mix of high value content and authentic conversation with real people that will drive results. And ultimately, those two things aren't that much different than social practices pre-AI. So a few things to keep in mind with your social media strategy. And these are things you've probably heard before, but first, be authentic. So don't let AI own your content. Make sure you have a human touch to everything you post. And the second piece is to offer value. You want to educate, inspire, and drive conversation. Social media is not a place to be boastful or promotional. And then the third piece is embrace the social aspect of social media. So encourage discussion, take part in relevant conversations, arm the rest of your company with materials to participate, and add a human voice to your brand. And a side note here, this also kind of aligns with Wayne's comments previously on the discussions and forums. Reddit is another channel where users, your sales team can participate in conversations and can embrace some of that social media strategy in addition to that human discussion with target audiences. So now we'll move into website.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Sorry, my microphone was off. Um, so yeah, as it relates to the website, so we've talked through sort of search and social, and really sort of the biggest thing there is that we're seeing how these channels are holding more traffic, which from the website perspective means that there's less traffic coming to the website, or the traffic that's coming to the website has potentially been more informed through AI and what it's been doing upstream. So let's take a look at really sort of what is the AI influencers in terms of that website, right? So this gets a little bit more into how the tools of AI are adjusting our thinking in terms of what's possible on the web. So we've got, really that fast creation piece, the ability to automate, and then that pressure to be unique. So, we're seeing AI, assist across all these disciplines, and really, sort of the question becomes then, if AI is doing all of this, sort of, what is the new role of the web team, right? And so let's dig a little bit into each of these. So from a fast creation standpoint, so if we think about design, right, and AI has the ability to bring creative ideas to a ready stage faster, the team still needs to be thinking up those great new ideas, and so the sort of shift that we see here is less on that creation and more on ideation and curation of those pieces. And from a development standpoint, again, AI can bring a lot of speed to code creation, code improvement, but that team still needs to do the analysis on what are the best features, what are the specifications for that, as we begin to bring new ideas to the site there. And from a content standpoint, AI's absolutely has the ability to identify new opportunities, to identify gaps, and to even bring forward, rough drafts of that content. That team still needs to be there reviewing that, making sure that it's on brand, making sure that it's true to the message that you want to bring forward. So we're seeing that sort of shift as those AI tools help with those pieces. From an automation an optimization standpoint there. So really, improving websites through testing and experimentation is something that's been going on for decades, but it's been a bit more unattainable because of some of these barriers. But with AI, the ability to create those variations quickly, the ability to analyze the results at speed is making that experimentation and that optimization much more attainable for companies big and small. And so really, what we're looking at here is, how can we begin to leverage these tools in order to build websites that can be improved and optimized through AI, and the sort of natural extension of that then becomes personalization. Personalization sort of moves from here's the best answer to here's the best answer depending. It depends on the audience, or it depends on, this particular factor or that particular factor. And all of a sudden we get to a place where it's more personalized. And so AI is also getting involved in that piece of it. And then this pressure to be unique, right? So again, we've talked about it quite a bit, but AI's ability to flood or to create so much, there still has to be this pressure to stand out, right? So here's all this content. What are we doing with that to make sure that we are still very much owning it, that it's unique to us? And that comes through in your brand, right? The visuals, the voice, the values of your brand, and making sure that those are, embodied within any of that content, even if AI is helping to generate those pieces, right? So let's take a little bit of a future state, right? So AI is, we're sort of in the infancy of this, but how is AI starting to transform the internet? And again, this thinking continues to be refined, but the real places on the web that we're seeing this is, I see this need to build websites that are more built on a structure. So we think about this more in a scaffolding, or building a website that is built to be transformed, or built to be updated, or built to let AI manipulate elements within. And then the next one, which to me sort of is an interesting extension of this idea of AI has the ability to comb through everything that's on the internet, and all of a sudden you begin to say, are there things that I don't necessarily want to expose to the world in terms of the ability to rapidly replicate or rapidly have access to? And so this idea of, are there places within my website where I actually want to shield that content? So does public-private become a bigger piece of the way we think about the website of the future, or the AI sort of informed website? And then we get into the mind side of the visitors. Again, questions getting answered up the funnel means that my visitor is coming to the website a little bit deeper in that funnel, a little bit more informed, and potentially more ready for that purchase decision. And then, this continuous learning and enablement means that we really can have a more personalized experience versus a more static or hard-coded experience within the websites. So as we dig into these, so a website that's built for AI, what does that really mean, right? So as we break that down into sort of some of those elements, so from a design standpoint, we're thinking about designing the building blocks, designing the templates, designing the scaffolding, and being less sort of rigid in terms of thinking we're designing each element. We're designing sort of a language, a design language that then AI can utilize to make sure that it's staying on brand, to make sure that it still fits into the rest of the website. From a structure of content standpoint, we're thinking about content in much more sort of building blocks of similar elements and then unifying those attributes underneath those elements and then interconnecting those elements. So what does that mean? So if we think about a product, right? So I have a collection of products. They are a similar group of items, and then those attributes underneath, length, width, height, color, material. All these things become attributes that are uniquely defined underneath. By creating those in a much more structured way, it gives us the ability on the site to filter similar items, or to bring forward potential suggestions in a way that's much easier than if I just have a block of content. It also gives the ability from a not just AI on your own site, but AI in a broader context, to be able to then assemble those products in other places within AI search results, what have you. And then interconnecting them certainly allows for that ability to filter or to present something. If we think about a homepage that's more of a blank template, and then I say, here's a collection of things. If I know something about you, I can bring in that collection based on their interconnection. And then the next piece of this becomes the measurement, right? And so if we're building a site around knowing more about our customer, then that means that we've got to create ways that we're measuring those interactions and ways that we're building the content for that interaction. And so we want to create better ways to measure that. So today we may be looking at how many page views did I have, or how often did someone return to this element, or did they click on a particular button within a page. But by creating more interactive elements, things with tabs, things with accordions, I can actually see what content was relevant to them. What did they open? And so that can also help inform what I can bring back from an AI standpoint. And then to the extent that we can, connecting that data to other data sources, CRM system, or if there's additional product data information. But whatever we could connect that to just gives more fuel for AI to be able to work with. So when we talk about the next piece, which is this idea of public and private, right? So again, the public information is about being important for us to get listed within search, for AI to be pulling, and for helping our customers, which now we believe are probably getting this information without visiting the site, to still have that information out broadly in the internet. But when we get into private, what is the high value information? Are there trade secrets? Pricing, if it's something that we don't want to necessarily expose. But what are there elements of our site that we want to shield? And so how do we do that within the website, whether that be simple things like no follow and no index tags to tell search engines not to look at them, to actually creating a private space where there's a requirement to be logged in order to have access to. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but I think there's an opportunity to flip that when we get into personalization, so that it doesn't feel like I need your information before you can get it at the next piece that you need. And so as we think about the next one, which is moving down that funnel, right? So again, if we think that based on everything else we're seeing, we believe users are getting those simple answers from social and from search, they're never getting those at the website anymore. How does that change my thinking about what's on the homepage, right? How does that change my thinking about where am I driving traffic to within the website? Are there even pages within my site that I don't ever expect a customer is going to see because AI is taking that content and bringing it forward? Are there places like that where we also want to think about other devices that could be utilizing that? So from, asking Siri a question and it coming back with that answer, making sure that my site is optimized to be able to provide that answer through other search sort of techniques. So, really thinking about and changing that thinking of today, we think someone's coming to the website to get all their answers. In the future, a lot of those answers get answered before. What does that look like? What does our site look like if I believe that customer is arriving at closer to a purchase decision or closer to comparison decision as opposed to an information question? And so if we jump into then the next, which is designing for personalization. Thinking about this in two sort of pieces of what information I can get from that customer, right? So I can personalize based on indirect information. These are the actions that they take on the site. What navigation items did they click to? What pages did they visit? If I have interactive elements within my site, they opened this piece of this accordion or they clicked on this tab. These are things that I can infer informationally about them. Then we have direct sort of connections with them. If we have the ability for them to put things in a shopping cart or a list, they're telling me what they're interested in, right? If we give them a logged in state and they can actually create a profile, right? They can tell us, what their job role is, or they can tell us, what sort of products they might be interested in. All of this then can be used from a personalization standpoint. So if we think about it, and you imagine a home page that is empty, that isn't designed, but can be assembled through blocks and pieces within that template, and then based on information that I know about that user, or from an AI standpoint, users like this user, sort of turning that into a segment, then I can build a custom homepage or a custom landing page around that information. And especially if I have a returning user, I can build that information around past things, past interactions, whether those are indirect or those direct things, information that they've shared, so that last time you were here, you looked at these couple of products. Guess what? We've introduced a new product that's a part of that new product line. Maybe that's the featured thing on this person's experience as they come to the website, right? That only happens if we really sort of build it in that sort of abstracted building blocks and templates way of thinking about building a website. So as we get into this then from a wrap-up standpoint, thinking about does our website of the future really have a members only area, right? So that it requires that email, but again, don't think about it as a barrier, think about it as an opportunity. By them providing an email and by them having a logged in state, it allows them to get a more personal experience and to hold the information that's important to them so that the next time they come back, it's readily available to them, right? And also that allows you to potentially have content that is of high value that isn't something that they can get through search that does require a visit to the website. And then with that in mind, I probably have pages on my site that then are much more focused on making sure that I'm getting into those search results. So I may have some very long pages that have a lot of content, but see very little traffic in terms of someone landing there, but are absolutely sharing that information. And think about if that information that is held there is in my brand voice and is sharing my particular products and is indexing very well, there is the opportunity for them to then encounter my brand and even learn about my products directly without that visit, right? And then building that site, building the blocks, structuring the content, and thinking about a site that is less rigid in its thinking of what it's going to look like and much more built around personalization and designing of that sort of language and that sort of overarching aesthetic that then is built in real time for that user. And that user arrives deeper down the funnel. So I'll hand you back to Mackenzie for a bit of a wrap up. And thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. So I know that was a lot of information, and there's no way companies can shift gears and execute an AI-ready digital strategy overnight. So just a little bit on where should you start. First, we recommend looking at your current marketing strategy and just rethinking that customer journey. How do you reach, educate, and convert customers throughout that journey? What channels are most valuable to you? What content are you creating to drive interest? How is your sales team involved? And where is AI going to have the biggest impact? For example, are you getting in front of a majority of your customers through organic search? Then maybe you want to zero in on search strategy and address AI's impact there. Or if your website's not optimized for more bottom of funnel activities, maybe you start with some website updates. And then once you've decided where to start shifting your strategy for an AI world, you need to start focusing on measurement. So first, refresh your KPIs and start to track results to understand AI's impact. For example, consider tracking inclusion in AI-generated search results in addition to just your page ranking. And then you'll have some baseline data to understand how your new strategy is driving results. And then kind of the last and most important piece is just to make sure you continue to monitor AI's impact on digital marketing and shift your strategies as appropriate. AI is continuing to evolve, and platforms like Google, ChatGPT, social channels are continuing to change the way they engage users as a result. So by staying on top of these trends, you can shift your strategy in real time and maximize your customer awareness and engagement. All right. And I think we addressed any questions throughout the discussion. If you do have a question, feel free to drop that in the chat or to reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we can follow up with you. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, today's webinar was recorded and will be available for on-demand access. So thank you all for joining. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and have a good rest of your day.